Hello booktube, hello book friends, welcome back to my channel and another reading week video. The books that I've finished am currently reading in the week ending the 27th of September 2025. So I've finished 3 books this week and I'm currently reading another one. And at the end of last week, I'd finished a set of diaries by Jean Guillermo, who was a teacher in Paris during the occupation by Nazi Germany in the Second World War. And I stayed in Paris for my next read. Something a little bit not quite so dark, shall we say, although has dark moments. And that is a Maigret novel. This is Maigret and the Loner by Georges Simenon, which I really enjoyed. Some people say, that Simenon was a little bit hit and miss with his Maigret novels. He wrote 75 novels and quite a number of short stories about Maigret. I have to say, I don't think there are any bad Maigret novels. There are good Maigret novels and there are very good Maigret novels, and this was a very good one. And also, people say that as he got to the end of the series that he was writing, they start to drop off. Not true. This is, I think, the 73rd of 75, and it's really good. I really enjoyed this. The story basically centers around a body being found of a tramp who has been shot in the chest, so clearly murdered, and nobody really knows much about him. He kind of kept himself to himself. He didn't really talk to anybody else. So it's, what, his story is not really well known or understood. It takes a while to identify him, but Maigret doggedly pursues, who he is, what happened, how he came to be murdered, and it's a really good read. I really enjoyed this one. I probably would say it's one of my favourites so far. I've read about half of them, I think. And yeah, I would definitely kind of rank this up amongst one of my favourites. So yeah, really enjoyed that. To the extent that I'm currently reading another. I've read a book in between, which I'll talk about in a sec. But I'm now reading Maigret and the Minister, and this is a little bit different. This is not. At least I'm kind of halfway through. So there hasn't been a murder. This is a bit more of I think conspiracy is probably the best way to describe what's going on. But yeah, I'm enjoying this as well. Just haven't finished it yet, but I think it's going to be probably just as good. Let me just read the back to you. Maigret has no taste for politics or politicians, but when he is summoned to a clandestine meeting by a desperate government minister one evening, he finds himself drawn into an unsavoury world of corruption, scandal, and cover-ups. So yeah, that's my current read. The book I read in between was actually one that came up from the booktuber Margaret Pinard, who did my tag around fictional self-help book tag, and I'll link to her video below. And one of the answers she gave was, I think it was for the self-defense which fictional character would teach you self-defense. And she said Alex Carter from a series of books by Alice Henderson. And I thought, when she said that the character was a biologist, I was instantly piqued my interest. So instantly intrigued, and I thought, well, I will check those out. And I just did it. So I'm not going to add it to the list, I'll just do it. So I read the first in the series, which is a Solitude of Wolverines. Basically, Alex Carter, who is the ongoing kind of heroine through all of the books, as far as I understand it, takes a job to study Wolverines and try and understand what's going on with the population and so on. She leaves kind of behind broken relationship, particularly traumatic incident that happens right at the start of the book, and up some moves in fairly short order to go to this Wolverine study, because the previous biologist has apparently had to go to London to be with his family. So she arrives. It's one of those where there's quite a bit of tension between some of the locals and the wildlife study, because it's owned by a wildlife charity. So a big hectarage of land owned by the wildlife charity, and obviously there to conserve, amongst other things, the Wolverines. So she's staying there in a disused hotel, and odd things start happening. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good story. A little bit of a stretch towards the end, when kind of the reveals of what was happening were coming up. A few things that maybe stretched believability a little bit. But it was good. I enjoyed it. I will read others in the series. I haven't yet, but I will definitely kind of keep an eye out for that author, and read future books. There is, I think, also an ongoing storyline that starts within that first book, which I presume will be played out in later books. So I think it might be a series that would help to be read in order, but I don't know that that's the case, because obviously haven't read any others yet. So we'll see. But yeah, really enjoyed that. Thanks to Maigret for A, doing the tag, and B, giving me a good book recommendation. So that's really appreciated. And then the final book that I finished, this one for Octember, which is the reading event around books for cephalopods, so octopus, squid, nautilus, etc. And this was Ray Nayler's The Mountain in the Sea. And this I really enjoyed as well. I think it probably would have helped if it had been a physical book rather than an audio book, because there were quite a few names of characters that I think were Asian in origin, and without seeing it written, it was quite difficult at times to follow who some of the characters were, because there were three plots, one main plot and two subplots. And when they were switching in the audio, it was like, well, where are we now? Oh, okay. It was fine by the last third of the book. I think I had it cracked, but the first 2/3 were quite hard to follow at times. But the book was really good. The stories were really good. So the story, basically, the main story centers around a island and nature reserve, which is now owned by a tech corporation called Deanima, and they are kind of an AI tech conglomerate, and they've bought this island basically bought it, evicted everybody who lived there, and have declared it a wildlife preserve. I think in part they've done this because they've also created a android artificial intelligence, a bit like Data in Star Trek The Next Generation, if you're kind of thinking of that kind of advanced kind of android. And I think because of various laws that have been passed that mean that you can no longer create an android to this degree, I think they've in some ways bought the island so that they can keep the android there and not be subject to those laws. But they've also discovered that there are things going on there that are a little bit difficult to explain, seem to be centered around an octopus population, but it's not clear what's going on. So a biologist is sent to the island to kind of work out what the heck's going on, working with the android. And there's also a security specialist there who is there to basically protect the two of them and the island from anybody who wants to come in. The other two subplots, one is based on a fishing vessel that is run by artificial intelligence. So there is no physical crew. There are security guards on the vessel, and most of the fishing is done by slaves. So it's basically a slave vessel. The slaves are there because although once the fishing vessel was completely automated and had robots and so on, the robots basically kept breaking down because of the arduous conditions at sea with the salt water and wind and so on. So they ripped all the robot fishing equipment out and put slaves on to do the fishing side of it. But the boat itself, there is no captain. It is an artificial intelligence that decides where they go and how long they fish for and where they fish. And then the bodyguards, security guards rather, are there basically to keep order and stop the slaves from revolting or doing whatever. So that's the second subplot. And then the third subplot is a little bit more mysterious, not quite as clear cut in terms of what's going on, but centers around a hacker who hacks into artificial intelligences to either take control of them or discover how they work or what they're doing. And then over the course of the book, those three kind of come together, some directly and some indirectly. And it's a really good read. I'm not a great science fiction reader. I do read the odd book, but this is kind of more of a near future, slightly dystopian fiction. I don't think all of the artificial intelligence, certainly the android, is not something that is as far as I know at least that close to being reality. I could see the fishing vessel maybe with a little bit more. I could see the precursor to the fishing vessel, so when it had the robotic fishing equipment on board, I could see that. But yeah, really good read. And as I say, that was for Octember. I think that will probably be my last Octember pick, given that we're nearly at the end of September. I don't think I've got anything else lined up to read. So I've really enjoyed it. It's been real fun. I hope it happens next year. And maybe there'll be some more, octopus or cephalopod books written between now and then, because there aren't I don't think there are a huge number. And certainly I think between all the people that are hosting it or are involved in it, most of those I think have been read in one way or another, but we'll see. So yeah, that's it for this week. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to read in the next few days ahead of October. I need to have a think about also what I'm reading in October. I haven't really got any significant plans other than a one buddy read for October. I don't think there's anything else in the mix that I can remember. I know there are some events that I'm not specifically participating in going on. So there's Victober, there's Occult Detective October, and so on. But not that I'm sort of specifically planning on anything for those at this moment in time. So yeah, probably need to have a think about October and maybe come up with a pile of possibilities. But yeah, that's it. So what have you been reading? Let me know down below in the comments. And if you have been, as always, thank you for watching, and I will speak to you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.